Good morning. It's Tuesday, January 21st, about 6 a.m. Central Time. So overnight, the precious metals, they are weaker after yesterday's pullback, fueled by a sell-off in industrial metals as commodities retreat as Trump pushes ahead with the tariff threats. So some of the top commodity headlines that I'm watching here, it's oil and the industrial metals. They both declined after President Trump, he reignited the trade war fears with his tariff threats for Mexico and Canada, talking about February 1st that he would impose 25% tariffs on both these countries. So we saw gold futures, they rose a bit on that type of news here as some people rotated and went into some safe haven assets. We saw the U.S. equities, they had also risen as well. The dollar index retreated and some of the foreign currencies had lifted up. So the prospect for a renewed global trade conflict is bearish across the board on most commodities, given the risk to consumption and also growth. So Trump held off on pledging any kind of levies against China, and that provided some relief to the agricultural markets. So you're seeing soybean and corn, they are pushing up just a touch here now. So let's do a quick data check on these different commodities that were mentioned. It's looking at crude oil down about $2. So that's a 2.6% sell-off here on the oil market. It looks as though oil prices had peaked here just recently. Remember, a lot of you working with us rode that train up here, pulled a lot of positions off in the late last week, and then potentially we might look at playing the downside either via put options or straight short futures contracts. Looking at the precious metals market, you got gold down about 15 bucks, 27.32. So a pushback up to that 27.50 level in the overnight session, low 27.15. Where things get interesting is where you get to copper down about 1.5% at 429. You got platinum down 1.5% at 950 and palladium down 2.75% at 941. Silver is really interesting because silver futures, they briefly spiked after Trump's comments. And if you look at, the March contract, it jumped about 1.2% to 31.52 before kind of paring back some of its gains. Remember, Mexico is the top miner of silver, and it's unclear whether those tariffs would be imposed on silver imports in the United States from Mexico. So we're gonna have to monitor that one, I think, and that's why the markets are digesting that just a bit, with silver futures kind of in and out of unchanged territory. You have the gold silver ratio sitting at 87-1, and getting to the other markets here, cryptocurrencies, such a wild ride here yesterday and throughout the weekend. You got Bitcoin futures hovering right around 104,000, Ethereum right at about 3,300. So remember, if you'd like to open up an account with Blue Line Futures or check out the Metals Edge here, something that I'm writing on a daily basis covering the gold and silver market, as well as some actionable trade ideas within it, send an email to info@bluelinefutures.com. Now looking at the CME's Fed Watch tool, still about a 99% chance that the Fed keeps rates unchanged. That's the January 29th meeting. They really can't do anything. They've got to see what is going to play out with Trump and his tariff talk. You've got about a 30% chance that they cut rates at the March meeting. You go out to May, it's about a 45%. And then June is where it gets interesting and it jumps up quite dramatically here. So we will have seen most of the tariffs being placed. We'll see a lot of his policies already rolled out. And that puts it at about a 65-70% chance that the Fed does cut rates. Looking at the futures performance here, your agricultural markets are your best performers in the overnight session. The products that are getting hit the hardest is going to be crude oil, heating oil, palladium, natural gas. Sugar prices are falling as well, breaking below the 18 handle and support, sitting at 17.78. So that's about a 2.5% move. Something that I'm noticing is that a lot of the commodities, the moves are quite bigger. So you look at your percentage moves, they're going to be a lot bigger, which means if you're trading from a tactical standpoint, you're either going to have a wider stop or you're going to pare back those positions. That way you have the same kind of risk to reward type of scenario. Now looking at the commodity trends here, all your metals products except silver and palladium are bullish, like platinum, gold, copper. Silver market still trapped kind of in a neutral type of stance, and the same thing with the palladium market, continue to remain bearish on those markets. I think that with the dollar index selling off down about 0.5%, a lot of the foreign foreign currencies rallying back. I think that some of the liquidation that's been in some of these things that people have looked at as safe haven assets or a preservation of capital type of play, things like gold against the euro currency, you could see that declining now against the Australian dollar and things like that. People are unwinding those spreads. You get into the gold market again, about 27.55. We've outlined that as being kind of a triple top on the market. You go back to about the November 21st to 23rd, then you get into December 11th to 13th, and then now we're back at that level here where prices have peaked and then we've seen a sell-off. So your critical level support going to be about 2,700, pocket support 2,715. Below that's going to be 2670, and then you don't want to see that market break below about 2643. That'll take it back to a neutral trend. Silver futures, they're kind of forming a small triangular pattern right now at the moment. You need this breakout over 3190 in order to get those bulls reignited, and you don't want to see a breakdown really below $31, and then you start getting in some close-in support, $30.85, and then it's kind of different levels here of small pocket support all the way down to about $30 down to $29.86. A break below $29.86 most likely will fuel another washout back to $29.08 where we saw support levels come in before. If you guys got any questions, you want to see the metals edge, I could forward it out to you. It's got a new format and everything. We do have a real nice energy report that's put out by our head of research here, Dan White. And then we do have the Grain Express, the livestock roundup, and we've got the Morning Express put out by Bill Baruch, the president and CEO of Blue Line Futures. And also he is the guy that's on CNBC that many of you have wealth management accounts with here, where we come up with different ideas in the U.S. equity markets for portfolio and position and wealth management planning. So you got any questions, give me a call, 312-858-7303. Remember, futures option trading does involve risk of loss, may not be suitable to all investors. Good luck, good trading.